Hi, my name's Phil. I'd like to talk about politics. In this video, I'd like to discuss the American Chamber of Commerce's statement when it comes to the UK's Brexit strategy and how Boris Johnson may need to do a little bit of rethinking. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, then please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, I've talked in the past about the damage to the UK economy that would be caused by the USA's trade deal proposals, which they were happy to publish over a year ago now. You'll notice Britain hasn't published any trade proposals with any country or trading bloc. But it also seemed clear that the Conservative government were happy to sign up to those damaging proposals when they undertook initially secret meetings between UK and US officials and then tried to suppress the minutes of those meetings. And when the minutes were eventually leaked, it was confirmed that the UK government side were agreeing to such things as selling off what remains of the NHS to American insurance companies. And in addition, it was accepted by the UK side that we could only get a US trade deal if we didn't agree one with the EU. It was one or the other as far as the US was concerned, not both, and the UK side were fully on board with that. And there's no point in Brexit supporters trying to say that we could negotiate a better deal. This is just the US's starting position. Yeah, sure. But Boris Johnson is desperate for this US trade deal. He will do anything for it. Not only is it the route to his privatising everything and shrinking government right down and removing our rights, but he needs a trade deal, any trade deal quickly, and one with the United States would play very well to his supporters in order to show Brexit as any sort of success. Never mind the fact that we currently have trade agreements or deals with much of the world. Just getting this one apparently will make Brexit a success. And it makes no difference what the deal is. Most people won't read it anyway, just like most people don't fact check anything he says or does. He just needs one. And if he doesn't have one by the end of the year, people will wonder if the rest of us weren't actually right when we were saying, well, these things take a long time to negotiate. He may get a little bit extra because of coronavirus, but he's going to have to come up with a trade deal at some point. Then there was a little bit of spanner in the works. Donald Trump's government decided that negotiating a trade deal with the EU was much more important to them. So not only was the UK not at the front of the queue for trade deals, wasn't in the queue at all, at least not publicly. But I was wondering at the time, and I still do, if talks weren't going on behind closed doors, given the damaging nature of the deal for the UK, that the UK would rather pretend that we weren't discussing a trade deal with the US at all to try and avoid public scrutiny. But now there's been yet another blow to the US trade deal from the UK's point of view, because the American Chamber of Commerce to the EU published a paper last week. There's a link below if you'd like to read it for yourself. Now, the group, as you would expect of any Chamber of Commerce for any country, represents the interests of, in this case, America's, and I suppose then, therefore, by extension, the world's major corporations. In other words, they form a very powerful lobby group. Arguably the most powerful, because it is the largest and richest lobby group in America, and it wouldn't be hard to believe that they will wield significant influence over any trade deal. Not saying that it represents all of the big corporations in America. I gather there have been some political wrangles that caused a little bit of a split a bit ago, but lobby groups in general in America are absolutely king. They hold the real political power. And if they don't like the trade arrangements that the orange one sketches out with his crayons, then they will seek to block it. And if pressure on the president himself doesn't work, they will pressure influential Republicans instead, who will pressure him on their behalf. That is just how it works. And the Chamber of Commerce has said that it is dead against the UK leaving the EU single market and customs union. Donald Trump may want that. They do not. Corporate America does not. Obvious enough, really, because leaving with a hard Brexit hurts American business interests just as it would business interests around the world. They've noted that current EU rules are the de facto global standards. I mean, this is what we've tried to explain to Brexiteers for all this time. The EU as a trading bloc is extremely powerful. In fact, as a bloc, it's bigger than the United States, even though no individual country is. And as they're saying, it's able to wield enormous influence over corporations. Normally, the only people that can do this is America. America can determine how businesses operate around the world when they have no ties with America at all. The EU can do the same. And these businesses, these American businesses, have already adapted to EU rules because, as they say, is the de facto global standard. They don't really want to piss about with a lot of extra red tape dealing with a completely different set of standards from a country that will seek to be different purely for the sake of being different. It will drive up their business costs, they say. They're not all that keen on that. In fact, the report says that the further away the UK moves from the EU, the higher the business costs will be. And Boris Johnson's position is he wants the UK to move as far away from the EU as it possibly can get. And finally, it also noted that the withdrawal agreement, this was interesting, the withdrawal agreement, something that Boris Johnson's government is not currently complying with, is a fact of international law, and that Americans expect the UK to comply with its obligations of checks to prevent a breach of the Good Friday Agreement just as much as the EU. The bottom line is that whatever trading relationship Brexit supporters think Boris Johnson is going to deliver is a fantasy. It was always a fantasy. The EU are not engaging in brainless games, and neither are those representing big business in America. And it will make no difference trying to work out whether Trump wants a trade deal with us or not. He won't get it along the lines that Boris Johnson is gunning for. The Chamber of Commerce are against it. Congress are effectively against it because without checks in order to avoid the hard border inside of Ireland, and it's now impossible to set up those checks this year, even if we were trying, which it has to be told we are not. In fact, the government keep denying that those checks are even needed. Well, the EU have been clear that they're needed. Anyone who reads the withdrawal agreement knows that they are needed, and in addition, America knows that they are needed. Congress knows that they're needed. They've made it very clear. And now the US Chamber of Commerce to the EU has made it clear that they are needed. So the simple fact of the matter is that Boris Johnson, if he continues with his current Brexit strategy, is not going to get that US trade deal. He's obviously not going to get an EU trade deal. He's not going to get a trade deal with anyone. And of course, if we do not comply with our legal obligations in international law, it's hard to see how we'll get a significant one with any major economy. So Johnson has to either extend the transition period, and for years, politically difficult for him now, or plunge Britain into a global isolation, which compounded with the economic impact of coronavirus will be utterly devastating. That is the reality of Brexit. It always was. It's just made worse now by the coronavirus crisis. But the voices who have a say in the process are shouting it louder by the day. So I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, then please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.